Hey everyone, and welcome back to Dallas Cowboys coverage free agency edition. So it's been a week now. I'm gonna go through all the moves that have happened so far, and unfortunately, I was hoping this would be a more of a good news video, but unfortunately, yeah, there's more bad news than good. So I'm just gonna get into it, kind of beginning to where we are now, kind of try to kind of go in order, but. Yeah, I was hoping to make this sooner with some good news, but unfortunately, it's just a whole lot of loss. So, we're going to start with the first move that was made on day one. It was Tony Pollard has officially signed with the Tennessee Titans. It's a 3-year, $24 million deal. I think this one was expected. He didn't have the year I think we were hoping he would. Obviously, he was still coming off the injury. It was just kind of sort of a strange circumstance, but ultimately he just didn't perform as expected. The Titans gave him an offer that the Cowboys simply were not ever going to. So, he went back to his home, or at least his college town. So, that's, it's a tough one just because now you're really, really thin at running back. The Cowboys, they did re sign more recently Rico Dowdle. So, right now your running back room is Rico Dowdle and Deuce Vaughn. That's it. I think Malik Davis also is on a future contract, but that's real thin and unproven. Rico Dowdle had his moments, but I think you really gotta add to that somehow, whether that's going to be in the draft or I think a lot of us were hoping for Derrick Henry, Saquon, Aaron Jones, one of those veteran running backs. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and that's kind of been the story of the offseason so far. We were promised all in, and if you watched my last video, I ranted for almost an hour about, how this team hasn't been all in. And, all in, they still are not. So it's just been really frustrating, I think for me and for all Cowboys fans because, you know, I think we were expecting this. I think, if you've watched the Cowboys for long enough, you know that we do not do things in free agency. But I think, this time just to be flat out lied to with we're going to be all in, we're going to make moves this time. And no, they absolutely have not. As I'll get into later, they have only signed one outside free agent. For the fourth year in a row, they were the very last team to sign one. And yes, it is still only one. So yeah, it's pretty frustrating. So just moving on, Tony Pollard, I think that one's a little bit sad, but I think expected, at the end of the day. Next, let's go to the Dallas Commanders. And Dan Quinn obviously hired it as head coach over there. And he has brought pretty much what feels like our entire depth of our defense with him. So started with Dorance Armstrong, he signed over there. Then Dante Fowler, as well as Noah Igbinoghene, and then offensively Tyler Biadasz as well. So those are four pretty, key players, some more than others, of course. But Tyler Biadasz, your starting center, got to replace him. Dorance Armstrong was your third edge, got to replace him. Dante Fowler was your fourth edge, got to replace him. And Noah Igbinoghene, obviously, he was just more of a special teamer, so not as big of a loss there. But I mean, that's a lot. And Dan Quinn, I appreciate everything he did here, but man, he's really turned himself into the enemy, taking all our players. So I think some of those were expected, but it doesn't make it any less disappointing. I think just not so much the players specifically, but more so of just the lack of urgency on the Cowboys side, just to let everyone walk. And now you have some major holes to fill. Obviously, edge has become now a big need as behind Parsons and Lawrence, you are very, very thin. You need a center, unless you're going to roll with Brock Hoffman, which would not be ideal if you ask me. So once again, more needs that we're kind of really putting on the draft, and it's a bit concerning. Even though this team has drafted well, and I still trust them. After last season's draft, it's really a concern that they're relying on the draft pretty much exclusively to fill all these needs. So you only have 3 top 100 picks. So, you're going to have to draft pretty much near perfectly if you're going to want to replace all the players that you've lost. And, the fact that we've done nothing here in free agency is really, really not helped their case. So it's definitely a concern just because, you're losing players and you are just not replacing them whatsoever. And it's just, I know this team likes the draft and I do too, but man, they're really, really putting a lot of pressure on a few rookies to step into big roles next season. So, got to hope they draft well because it did not happen last season. So, continuing on with the defensive side, Neville Gallimore also left. He signed a deal with the Miami Dolphins. Again, not the biggest loss, but I think a bigger one perhaps was a move that happened today. Um, Johnathan Hankins signed with the Seattle Seahawks. So once again, this is your starting nose tackle. I mean, he was really a key player for you last season. You're probably best run stopper on the defensive line other than DeMarcus Lawrence. So he is gone. He's going to Seattle to reunite with Aiden Dirty, our former defensive line coach, now their defensive coordinator. So another coach we lost, another player we lost. Yeah, it's just been an offseason of loss for the Cowboys. So Johnathan Hankins, was kind of an under the radar trade deadline move a couple years back and has really he had turned into a key starter for you. You missed him quite a bit when he went down with an injury. So now yet another player you have to replace. Hopefully Mozzie can step into that role, but obviously based on his production in year one, it's hard to really count on that as a guarantee. So hopefully, and I hate that hopefully is all we have because man, we've lost a lot so far and it's really frustrating. So, it's just let me know what your biggest loss is in your opinion, which loss is the most significant for the team. I can name quite a few and we're not even close to done. So let me know in the comments, what do you think is the biggest loss? And of the free agents still out there, who would you most like to re-sign? Hopefully the Cowboys aren't done, but yeah, obviously we'll have to see. So continuing with losses, this is a very sad one for me. Leighton Vander Esch has officially now announced his retirement. He was released with a failed physical designation, so that pretty much indicated what the inevitable was going to be. Just so unfortunate, obviously, if you guys remember, against the 49ers, Trent Williams shoved him in the back into Micah Parsons. His neck bent terribly. He had to undergo a second neck surgery, and this is really just kind of it's a career ender for him, obviously, but it's just so unfortunate for him to go out that way. I mean, he's linebacker one, obviously, on this team, so that is a need. They did address, I'll get to that in just a second, with Eric Kendricks, but it's just tough to see Leighton Vander Esch have to go out like this. One of my favorite players on the team, really. Just great guy, on and off the field. Great character guy for this team, always giving his hardest. It's just really sad to see him go out like that. So that's, again, just unfortunate. Another need, obviously, we'll have to further address at linebacker as a whole. But thank you to Leighton Vander Esch for everything you did for this franchise. Obviously, not the longest tenure, but really, gave us some good years. So thank you to Leighton Vander Esch, and I'm wishing you all the best in retirement. So luckily, this was the one move that was sort of addressed, and that is Eric Kendricks. The Cowboys signed him, kind of poached him from the Niners, actually. If you guys saw the report, he initially did sign a deal with the San Francisco 49ers, kind of changed his mind and decided to go with his old coach, Mike Zimmer, our new defensive coordinator, and signed with the Dallas Cowboys. So he is the one and only signing that the Cowboys have made outside of re-signings, the only outside free agent. So he's a good one. I like that signing, obviously, a veteran player, former Pro Bowler. I think he'll do a good job at replacing Leighton Vander Esch, kind of a one-for-one there, stepping into that linebacker one role. I think you got to hope that Damone Clark and Marquise Bell can continue to develop and elevate their play. And also DeMarvion Overshown, I think, is really the one rookie from last year, that I'm really still banking on to be a star, obviously, coming off his own torn ACL injury. So it's going to definitely be interesting to see how he can ramp back up. But man, he sure looked good last preseason. So I'm still hoping for the best out of him, and hopefully he can be a key player in helping replace Leighton Vander Esch as well. So, and that's just the frustrating part of all of it is just, I think Eric Kendricks, great signing, but the fact that it's the only one is just absolutely ridiculous to me. You have so many needs now because of all the players you've lost, and you have just done next to nothing to replace them. So it's been frustrating overall. Grade the offseason if you want in the comments. To me, it's a D at best. Obviously, we're going to have to hope the draft is better, but free agency a weekend has really, really just been rough. So I will get into some re-signings the Cowboys did. So that is something, I guess. The very first move was actually Carl Davis. He is, I guess, your nose tackle on the roster, but besides Mozzie Smith. So that was done actually the day before free agency opened. He was signed onto the practice squad, only appeared in 3 games in which he was elevated. So not expecting much from him. Maybe he makes the roster. I mean, we'll see what kind of moves we make. But again, not moving the needle much. The very first signing of all during the official free agency period was Trent Sieg. Yay. He's your long snapper. Good for him. Vet minimum contract. But again, not doing a whole lot. So again, just another frustrating piece of this. Jourdan Lewis was re-signed. I think that is a good re-signing. Obviously, he can kind of be that slot cornerback. He's one, he makes a lot of nice plays. Obviously, he had a pretty rough start to last season. I was pretty frustrated with him, but once he got going, kind of got back on track. So obviously, he was another one coming off of an injury. So once he kind of revved back up, he looked pretty solid. So that's, again, a solid vet minimum type of signing. Cool. CJ Goodwin's another one. This one, maybe some people don't care much about, but I personally do like this signing. He's your best special teamer, and you did miss him when he went down last season with an injury. So under the radar, I mean, not gonna get the fans going crazy, but CJ Goodwin, welcome back. Yeah, and that's kind of where we are. I wish there was a lot more we could talk about, but unfortunately, it's just more loss. So the next one I'm going to talk about is Michael Gallup. Obviously, kind of switching from the defense to offense. Michael Gallup is another one that frustrates me just because I don't understand the Cowboys' obsession with paying players coming off of major injuries. You did it with Gallup. You did it with Terrence Steele, and that one is biting you as well. Gallup just was never the same coming back from that torn ACL. You traded Amari Cooper for John Ridgeway, if you guys remember him. Didn't even make it out of preseason. Yeah, I can't get over that. Really, just a 6th-round pick for Amari Cooper is just possibly one of the biggest mistakes, recently in franchise history. Honestly, you chose Gallup over him. You cut Cooper, paid Gallup. Gallup did next to nothing for you, honestly, after that torn ACL injury. I love him as well. Great guy. I appreciate what he did for this organization, but unfortunately, over the past few years, he has just really been a shell of his former self. I think we saw this release coming, but unfortunately, it's just another player you lost and another player you have yet to replace. So I think another one we saw coming, and it's like, yay, you're saving the cap, and that money, by the way, will kick in after June 1st, since that was a post-June 1st designation on that transaction. But it's just frustrating. We're losing all these players. We're not paying. It's too expensive, whatever. All the money we save, what do we do with it? Nothing. And that's just, I think, overall and over again, the frustrating sort of insanity of this organization. I talked about it, of course, a lot in that last video, so I'm not going to rant for an hour like I did in that one, but, I think it goes without saying just how frustrating this team has been for the last, now I think we're pushing 30 years. I think it's 28 now, but the way this team has functioned just has been so frustrating just because over and over again, it's these off seasons of nothing. The last big free agency signing you've made was Brandon Carr back in, I think, 2012-ish, something like that. Yeah, what does that say? I don't get it. I don't understand how this ownership group, the Jones family, how they feel like they're somehow exempt or different, and that they think that they can just do it how they want, how they can just be cheap and not make signings and expect success. I truly don't understand it, because it's been the same story for the last decades. over and over again, we're so close. 2009, so close. 2014, so close. 16, 19, 22, 23. You can go year by year that this team is so close, so much talent, but yet they're out in the divisional round or the wild card round this year. What does that say? I think it says a lot overall. You can look at coaching, multiple coaches over that stretch, and, say what you want about all of them, but none of them were able to get the job done. Players have come and gone throughout this whole stretch as well. And once again, it's like, great players, future Hall of Famers, still can't get it done. The one constant throughout all of this is ownership. I'm looking at Jerry. I'm looking at Steven. That is the one thing that hasn't changed. And to me, the problems of this organization start at the very top. And that's as simple as that. You can talk about year to year. You can try to blame Dak. You can blame McCarthy. You can blame Jason Garrett. You can blame Tony Romo if you want. Whatever. There's obviously a different circumstance every year. You can blame injuries. You can blame whatever you want. But the one thing that hasn't changed is ownership. And that's who I blame more than anything. I'm done blaming players. I'm done, honestly, blaming coaches, because the one thing that hasn't changed is ownership. The culture and the mindset that they possess is a losing one. It is a good regular season. It's a give fans hope. It's a sell tickets, but do nothing in the postseason. And it's frustrating, and it makes me lose faith as a fan, and it just, I don't even know what to say at this point. This offseason is reminding me so much of 2022's offseason, in which we traded Gallup and cut La'el Collins and did all of nothing, to replace them. It's deja vu 2 years later. Last year they finally started to give me hope with the Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore signings. And now it looks like they have gone right back to their old ways, instead of building on what we started, instead of building on what we have, we just seem to once again be tearing it down and not doing anything about it. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And as fans, I think we're at a loss at this point. I don't know what to say. I can rant and I can vent and I can all of this, but Jerry's not going to watch. Jerry's not paying attention. This team just doesn't seem to care anymore. This organization, should I say, not the players, not the coaches. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about up top. They, have given me the impression that they just don't care. And, if that's going to be the way it is, I don't know even what to say anymore, because to me, I'm going to reiterate some of what I said in the last video. This is the richest organization in the world, sports franchise organization. This family, this Jones family, is filthy rich, and they will continue to sell out tickets. They will continue to sell gear. They will continue to have the most loyal and the largest fan base of any team in the National Football League, and honestly, of maybe any organization, sports organization in the entire world. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good this team is. Cowboys fans will be loyal, and we will go to games, and we will buy their stuff, and we will get hyped, and we will say this is our year every single year, even though it's probably not. And to me, the Joneses have just continued to take advantage and to take our loyalty for granted. And that's frustrating to me as a fan, because over and over they have proved that they don't care. They're still going to be rich. They're still going to be the most popular franchise in the world. It doesn't matter whether we win a Super Bowl or not. This team is built, this organization is built on our past, and it's just, no matter, success or failure, they're getting paid. They're sitting pretty. They're on their yacht, which they were hanging out over spring break instead of being focused on free agency. They were on vacation. So what do you want us as fans to do at this point? Truly, you have shown over and over again that you don't care. They can say all they want, that they want to bring a Super Bowl here, but they have proved time and time again that it doesn't really matter to them. They're fine. Win or, I think they're at a mindset that if we win, great. If we don't, well, they're still rich. They're still good. This franchise is still going to be a success. To me, unfortunately, the Joneses, they are incredible businessmen. I won't take anything from that. Jerry is a Hall of Fame owner for a reason. But man, they suck at running a football team. Yeah, they're great at business, and they're rich for a reason, but they cannot run a football organization anymore. Maybe they could before, I don't know. But for the last 30 years, they have been absolute failures as general managers. It's as simple as that. If this were any other organization in the entire league, the general manager, Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones, whatever, would have been fired 20, 25 years ago. Because when you don't have success in this league, you go. You're fired. Someone new takes your place. And that's why throughout the league there's urgency by head coaches, by general managers, because they know that if they don't succeed, the team's going to find someone else who can. Except with the Dallas Cowboys. This is the one organization in the NFL that is a family business. The general manager is Jerry Jones himself. He's not firing himself. He's not firing his son. So nothing ever changes. And for them, there's no reason for it to, because they're doing fine. They're getting paid. They're sitting pretty. There's no reason. There's no incentive for them to go out and make moves. There's no incentive for them to be putting it all on the line, to be truly all in. Because they're fine. They're not going to get fired. There is just no motivation for them. And to me, that's the reason why nothing has happened. And that's the reason why nothing continues to happen, because they just don't really care. There's no urgency. There's no reason for them. And it's insanity, I know. But until, there's a change, which why would there be, unfortunately, I can't get my hopes up, and I know we probably will all over again. I know that we'll, probably go through the same cycle again, but it's just frustrating because time and time again, this team has so much talent. This team had 9 all-pro players last season. That's more than any other team in the league. This team has so much talent, and we are so close. We're so close to getting where we want to be. But instead of this team going out and making the moves necessary, going and getting that type of Deion Sanders, that player that's going to put this team over the top, instead of going out and making this happen, they just sit back and, hey, maybe we'll draft someone. Hey, maybe one of our discount bargain bin free agents will work out. There's no urgency. And until there is, I don't see what we want coming. And, I think what has put this in perspective more than anything, is this team right here, the Texas Rangers. They had never won a World Series ever in their franchise history, unlike the Cowboys. As Rangers fans, it was a pretty tough stretch over the last few years because the team was really bad. They didn't have the talent, they didn't have the coaching. It was rough. It was rough for a few years. Obviously, 2010, 2011. Man, so close. They were so close, and unfortunately, it didn't get done. But now here we are, more than a decade later. The Rangers fired their general manager, John Daniels. They brought in CY. They brought in Chris Young. And look at the job he did in just 2 short years, taking this team from one of the worst in the league to World Series champions. The Texas Rangers accomplished more under Chris Young in 2 years than the Dallas Cowboys have accomplished in now nearly 30 under the Joneses. To me, what does that say? You know, they brought in someone new, and look what happened. Chris Young made the moves necessary. He brought in Corey Seager, he brought in Marcus Semien, he brought in John Gray, all in a single offseason. Spent more than the Cowboys have in probably 30 years. And the team improved. It was a better year, but still it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough in 2022. They didn't quite make the playoffs, still a losing record, but there was improvement. And, now following that season, going into 2023, Chris Young, he didn't stop. He made more moves. He brought in Jacob deGrom. He brought in Nathan Eovaldi. He brought in Andrew Heaney. He brought in more players, and particularly pitching, because that's what the Rangers were lacking, much like the Cowboys are lacking certain areas, defensive tackle. The Rangers brought in the players necessary to put this team over the top, and they did better. The season was going pretty well, but still, at the trade deadline, they knew that it still wasn't quite enough. Jacob deGrom went down. Your hitting's been really good. Your pitching is still lacking something. What do? They go out and trade for future Hall of Famer Max Scherzer and for an outstanding pitcher in Jordan Montgomery. They, even at the trade deadline, made 2 key moves. And without those moves, I don't think that team wins the World Series. But they went out and they made those moves necessary. In just 2 years, they went from irrelevant to a World Series champion team. And it all started at the top in Chris Young. And, brought in the players over 2 off seasons and a trade deadline that you needed to turn this team into a true contender. He brought in a Hall of Fame coach in Bruce Bochy. He pulled him out of retirement this past offseason, and in his very first season as a Texas Rangers coach, won his 4th World Series title. The Rangers went out and they did what they needed to do to bring a championship to Arlington for the first time in their franchise history. It is the only championship in Arlington that I've seen in my lifetime, and I am so proud of it. I really am, as a Rangers fan, so excited and so proud of the job that their organization did to bring the players, the coaches, and the general manager necessary to get the job done. And in these 2 years, they went from, 2021, one of the worst teams in the entire league. 2022, better, but still not a playoff team. 2023, World Series champions. I think that says enough, what they accomplished in just a few years. This Cowboys organization hasn't accomplished in nearly 30. And if that's not a wake-up call to see your neighbors across the street winning, and to see fans, parading in Arlington, while you're sitting at home after the first round of the playoffs, I don't know what is. I really don't. This Rangers team showed the city how it's done, and they showed us what it takes to win a championship. It takes every part of the organization, every part, from the players to the coaches to management to the owner himself. Every single part of their organization was working together to improve, to be better. And now, not only have they brought a World Series title, but they're set up for future success. They drafted well, in addition to all the signings they made. And now you have 2 incredible rookies in Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford ready to carry the torch going forward, along with the veterans you have, Corey Seager, Adolis Garcia, Marcus Semien. I can go on to not only, this World Series this year, but to a team that can compete for this season and for years to come. the Rangers did a masterful job at going all in, but at the same time setting this team up for success going forward. They showed that it can be done, that you can go all in, that you can spend big, and that you can bring a championship without even sabotaging your whole future. I think the Rams are an example of a team that truly went all in, and now, it's a little bit tough for them. They're back in the playoffs, honestly. It wasn't that long of a rebuild period for them. But, they went all in for that championship. And yeah, they might not get another one anytime soon. But they won. Isn't that all that matters? Isn't that the ultimate goal? They've I think went extreme by trading away all their draft picks, but like with the Rangers, for example, they didn't even have to do that. They were able to retain that, and they were able to set themselves up for success now and beyond. It can be done. Look across the street and you can see it. They went and took it. When is this Cowboys team going to commit? When is this Cowboys team going to go be aggressive, make moves, and bring a championship back here? I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you. But this offseason hasn't been inspiring. It's I don't know what to say, because they know what needs to be done, and it's up to them to do it, and unfortunately it hasn't been done. So what do you want me to say? Maybe next year, maybe next offseason it'll be different, because it won't. I don't know what it's going to take, but over and over again they've done the same thing, and they've punched fans in the gut over and over again. I don't know when it's going to change. I wish that was it, but I'm still not done. Tyron Smith is the next player I want to talk about, because I think of all the offseason, this is the one that hurts the most for me, just because he is one of the last players of the old Cowboys, per se. He was a part of that 2014 team, part of the 2016 team. He's the longest tenured player on your team. He's been around since 2011. Multi-time Pro Bowler, multi-time All-Pro, future Hall of Famer, and one of the greatest Cowboys in franchise history. I could see him certainly being on the Ring of Honor one day, as well as the Hall of Fame, of course. And you let him go to the New York Jets. So, it's just tough, because once again, you've created a need. I love Tyler Smith. I think he's probably going to move to left tackle, but once again, you have gaping holes in your offensive line. An offensive line that was not good enough last season. It wasn't good enough with Tyron Smith, Tyler Biadasz, Zach Martin, and Terrence Steele. That's a pretty dang good group, and it still just wasn't quite good enough. Now, an offensive line of Tyler Smith, TJ Bass, Brock Hoffman, Zach Martin, and Terrence Steele. Does that sound better to anyone? No, absolutely not. There's 3 undrafted free agents on that team. I'm not saying TJ Bass and Brock Hoffman don't have potential, but I'm saying it's not good enough. It's worse. And that is, to me, the overarching theme of this offseason. Long story short, you have gotten worse. And if you weren't near good enough last season, how do you expect to be better this year if all you did was literally make your team worse by letting players go, by letting a future Hall of Famer walk out the door to the Jets? I mean, the contract it was 1 year, like $20 million with incentives, but the base salary I think was like $8.5 million. You're telling me you can't pay that to retain Tyron Smith? It's frustrating. It was the same issue with Derrick Henry. Too rich for the Cowboys. He got $8 million a year. That's too rich for you? This team has shown that they're not committed to winning. And, it's as simple as that. I thank Tyron Smith for everything he did. Once again, one of the, true staples of this organization over the past decade. He has really, really been an incredible player and an incredible person on this team. I'm really, just sad that he has to play in another uniform. But once again, it's just we have no one to blame but ourselves. He wanted to come back here, but you weren't willing to pay him what he deserved. And it's the same case over and over again. You're not willing to retain your good players, and you're not willing to go out and sign new ones. So what do you expect? Why are you surprised when we're first round exits, second round exits, year after year after year after year? This team's been so close, but not good enough. And instead of improving, instead of making the needs necessary to put it over the top, we just continue to get worse. We continue to take a step back. We continue to just like our guys. And honestly, this year, I don't even think we liked our guys enough to keep them. So I don't even know what this was. All in? If this is all in, man, I don't even know. I don't even know anymore. So I think that's just about every move that's happened. If I missed one, I apologize. I'll put it in the description. But yeah, not a whole lot of good news in this video. And I said I'd keep it short. I didn't do that. I'm sorry. But it needed to be said, I wish we had good news, and I hope, obviously this free agency isn't over. Most of the good players are gone, mind you, but I'll continue to cover, any moves that happen. I'll probably do shorts, if they're quick ones. Obviously, we'll talk about the draft once we get closer, but thank you guys for watching. I wish that this could end on a happier note, but for me, it's just, I love this team. I will always love this team no matter what. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan for life. Through the ups and through the downs, I'm going to be here. And, I just wish that the Joneses and the organization were as committed to this team as us, the fans, are. I truly wish they were, because if they were, and if they cared about this team and they cared about success as much as we do, we'd have more than 5 Super Bowls. We'd have more than a wild card win over the past decades. We'd have gone further than the divisional round. We'd have another Super Bowl if they cared, honestly, half as much as us fans do. So I don't know what it's going to take, but I know that we'll be here. I know that we're going to be here, till the wheels fall off. And I just hope that one day the Joneses will start to care as much as we do. Because as soon as they do, that's when a championship will come back to Arlington. That's when this team will be what we've all wanted it to be for years and years and years. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time, hopefully with some good news. But either way, thanks again for watching. Go Cowboys.